Hello, everybody, and welcome into another season preview show here at the Hockey Writers YouTube channel. And I'm your host, Matthew Zator, and we are up to the Vegas Golden Knights here on our previews as we get closer and closer to the regular season starting. And I've got Ben Fisher here. You covered the Golden Knights. You don't actively cover them anymore, but I know you know a lot about the Golden Knights anyway. So thanks for coming on.
Hey, my pleasure. And yeah, I mean, you don't just ditch next that quickly. So I'm still very much, keeping tabs and aware of what's going on in Vegas. And
For sure. Yeah, I mean the Golden Knights, they're going to be a strong team again this season. They did see some changes in the offseason. Of course, the biggest one being Jonathan Marchessault moving on to the Nashville Predators. He was a big part of their team. Of course, won the Conn Smythe Trophy when they won the Cup. Of course, massive in his history, all-time scoring. I mean, he's up there. So that's a big hole they're going to have to fill. They added a few guys in the offseason too. They made some trades. They got Alexander Holtz from the New Jersey Devils, traded Logan Thompson to the Washington Capitals. They've done some moves. I mean, not a lot of additions, I guess. Not massive additions, but some guys that could surprise. So let's just jump right into our forward group here. And of course, having a big part, Tomas Hertl having his first full season with the team after that big trade last season. So what do you think about this group going in? I mean, like I say, Alexander Holtz is probably the biggest addition from the offseason. But what do you think about the group going in Victor Olofsson was another addition from the
right,
Buffalo
yeah.
Sabres too. What do you think about the group?
Well, I mean, let's not let's call it what it is. And this was the 2023 Stanley Cup coming due effectively
Yeah.
from a cap standpoint. I mean, you mentioned Marchessault, which obviously he's the most recognized, the biggest name to leave, and the most closely intertwined with Vegas's history to this point. Plus, he didn't. There's some enmity related to how the departure all happened,
Mm.
but it wasn't just him. It was, I mean, Chandler Stevenson's gone.
Yeah.
William Carrier was an original Golden Knight that he's no longer there anymore. Even a guy like Michael Amadio played some key depth minutes for us for a couple years there.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, um, it was tough. We're still tied up against the cap. It was really tough to not only retain these guys, but also make up for their loss. And so
Mhm.
that was really a challenge in the offseason for Kelly McCrimmon and for the rest of the front office. I'd say that I mean, there are some guys worth getting excited about for sure. I mean, you mentioned two big names right off the bat. Victor Olofsson, who, again, we're hoping to erase last year, where sort of production dipped a bit, injuries took over, but he's just 2 years away from 2 years removed from a 28 goal season. So if that's, I mean, he's going to get plenty of top six opportunities, and if by playing alongside Jack Eichel or Thomas Hertl, I mean that if that's not going to spark him, then nothing will. And
Yeah.
so there is certainly hope that that this year is going to resemble 2022-23 a lot more than it did last season. Alexander Holtz is another really interesting young forward. He wasn't bad with the Devils last year.
Mm.
Um, he had a semi-decent season, still establishing himself as an NHL regular, but I think he was acquired in the Paul Cotter trade, and I do think that he provides that little bit more upside. Former number seven overall pick, and a guy who, I mean, it might not be this might not be his breakout year, but if he can grow within the organization and start to adapt to some of his teammates, then I think that he is a player that could be around for a few years. Plus, something that the forward corps right now desperately needs, and that's some youth.
Yeah. That's the biggest thing with Holtz. I mean, I think he was kind of there was something with New Jersey. It seemed like he wasn't fitting in. They weren't giving him a lot of ice time. And he is a guy that I think has a ton of skill. And the thing is he's he's now in a team that he's not going to be pressured into developing, I guess, too quickly. He's set to be playing some pretty good players depending on where he fits in the lineup. I mean, right now he's on daily faceoff. He's set to play with William Karlsson and Brendan
Right.
Brisson on the third line. That could be a line. I don't know. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how he fits in the lineup. You've got, Olsen, like you said, he's shown he can score goals. It's just mostly on the power play, which is not a
Yeah,
bad
that's
thing
true.
production wise to have, but I'd like to see a bit more 5-on-5. I, but yeah, it's some interesting, of course, low money signings, low money additions too.
That's
So
just it. And McCrimmon's
big
sort
one.
of hoping that having the existing structure and some pretty solid star power up front, having the existing structure in place allows them the luxury of taking a flyer on a guy and knowing that he's going to have some help around him. So that's certainly the hope with Olofsson, and to a lesser extent Holt. I mean, he's really in a great situation where, if to your point, if he does play further down the lineup, then they do have the ability to bring him along slowly. But I mean, who knows? There is an option. It is not the same depth that the clubs had in previous years. So there is the option, if he catches fire, that there are some spots on the wing further up the lineup that he could slot into.
Who knows? He could play with Jack Eichel, and that'd be a pretty good, pretty good to play with him. Or even Hurdle would be a great duo too. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's going to be interesting. And Mark Stone having a healthy season, hopefully, fingers crossed, he actually plays the whole season and is good because he was good in the playoffs. So we'll see.
Again.
Again, he just
Yeah.
comes back. Hopefully, he has a whole season to play now. All right,
And the other guy that I'm looking for, sorry, just to
no
interrupt.
problem.
The other guy is Pavel Dorofeyev,
Yeah.
who, um, I mean, has still not really established himself as a full-time NHLer, but based on some of the early comments from McCrimmon from the front office, that they view him as a full-time Golden Knight now, and I think he's going to get every opportunity afforded to him. He's another guy similar to Olofsson that has shown that he can score goals when given the opportunity, and has a little speed to him, which is nice. And I think that now if he can get an opportunity to play alongside Hurdle, alongside Stone, then there's a real opportunity for him to possibly have a breakout and surprise a few people.
For sure. He's set to play in that second line with Hurdle and Stone, if that's how it all plays out. But yeah, he's set to be in the top six, it looks like. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see for him. All right, defense, which really didn't see any changes at all. They had, of course, lost Alec Martinez, who went to the Chicago Blackhawks, and he's been a Golden Knight forever as well. Noah Hannafin is now going to have a full season with the team as well too. So and of course, we all know how well he played after the trade, and probably one of their best defensemen. So, what do you think about this defense core? It's pretty strong still, even though Martinez moved on.
Oh yeah, and emotionally, losing Martinez was a blow because he was a leader in the locker room. He was, I mean, his playoff track record is pretty well established at this point, so he was a popular guy there. But ultimately, I mean, realistically, he was at a point in his career where last year he wasn't really giving Vegas much. I mean, the Golden Knights had the opportunity to slot him a little further down the defensive depth chart, and so I don't think that his departure is necessarily. I mean, he got his 4 million with Chicago, more power to him, but I think that they're still pretty well set. I mean, you've got you mentioned Hannafin, Petrangelo is still going to be a huge minutes eater, even as he potentially starts to decline a little bit here. But they've still got a pretty solid top seven, plus
Mhm.
a couple guys that are definitely going to make a case in training camp and try to work their way in. I can see, like, I mean, I think that Caden Korczak, for instance, is going to be a guy
Mhm.
that takes a look. Ben Hutton's still there. You've got they added Robert Haig, who, I mean, I'm not sure what you're getting from him at this point, but again, another guy at the very least to create some competition in training camp
Yeah.
and vie for minutes. So I think the blue line is just fine. It wasn't a perfect unit last year by any means, but I mean the depth is certainly still there.
100% in the high end top four, when you're looking at a top four of Hanifin, Petrangelo, McNabb, and Theodore, that's pretty good. I mean, I take that top four. Um, yeah,
And Theodore in
especially
a contract year, so there could be a little motivation there too.
true. Yeah. And we'll see if they, I mean, I don't know about trade if that happens, but uh, who
It was
knows?
talked about last season, so we'll see.
Yeah, that's something to watch for sure. All right, goaltending. Of course, I mentioned they traded Logan Thompson to the Capitals. You're looking at Adin Hill, starter, and Ilya Samsonov, who signed from in free agency, coming from the Toronto Maple Leafs. Who, I mean, he was up and down with the Maple Leafs. I mean, he was in the AHL for a
One
bit
good
there.
year, one not so good year.
He was
Yeah.
okay. I mean, it was an average goaltender. But now he's set to be the backup to Hill or 1A, 1B. Where do you actually see this tandem? Is it a 1A, 1B, or
I
are
mean,
you looking at Hill as the starter?
I think that Hill has still earned every opportunity to. I mean, I think the crease is his until it isn't. I think
Yeah,
that he's going to get the chance to be the guy, but I mean, I think that Vegas bought themselves a nice little bit of insurance in knowing that if he does falter, if he has issues, then they've got a guy backing him up that was the de facto number one for a playoff contender the last couple of years. So, I mean, I think that as much as Logan Thompson, again, younger goalie, one of the a great contract, but I think that at this point they felt a little more comfortable going with. I mean, as you mentioned, Samsonov is by no means um, a perennial Vezina candidate, but he's a perfectly solid goalie
mm,
um, that has given Toronto a couple decent seasons, and so I think that there's just more of a comfort there in having a fallback in someone like Samsonov, and they did the same thing even at number three in the depth chart by adding Akira Schmidt in that
yeah.
Alexander Holtz trade. So I think the idea was more goaltending depth in general, and I think they've done a pretty good job addressing the crease.
For sure. Do you see Schmid actually challenging Samsonov though in training camp as potential backup? Although Schmid can beat down to the AHL, uh, does he have to clear waivers
No,
to?
I think he still has options for him. So I think that's going to be obviously the big factor that
Yeah,
he can go free to Henderson, I believe.
yeah, I believe
Um,
so too. Yeah.
so I mean I think that I think that's your answer right there. But yeah, I mean to your point, absolutely. If I mean if Schmid can push the top two guys, then I think that it's a nice problem to have, and it's something that could be addressed a little later on. Plus, I mean, Aiden Hill's had his fair share of injury issues, so has Samsonov. So I mean, never hurts to have a little bit of
Yeah.
insurance.
For sure. And Schmid's shown flashes of really good play in the NHL. Of course, the playoffs at the New Jersey Devils there for a bit looked like a pretty good goalie. So I mean, we'll see if he can maybe throw a bit of a wrench in the tandem there and see where it goes.
Yeah.
Okay, looking at the Pacific Division, this is a tough division, at least at the top. The bottom is still, of course, the Sharks, the Ducks. They're the bottom feeders, but you got the Seattle Kraken who may bounce back this season. You got, of course, the top of the division with the Oilers, the Canucks, the Kings. I mean, Calgary Flames are probably in that murky area. I don't know what they're going to be this season, but where do the Golden Knights kind of fit in this division?
Yeah, I mean they're in tough. I mean, I don't think that any of well, the Oilers had a great offseason aside from Broberg and Holloway, but
Yeah.
otherwise they handled it pretty well. And beyond that, I don't think either of the Kings or Canucks got appreciably worse. So they're still certainly going to be right there among vying for those top three. And yeah, you said it that the Kraken. I mean, to get Brandon Montour to add Stevenson, there were a number of pickups there that I do think will make an impact and will certainly help them get back. I think, I mean, we'll see how it all plays out, but I think that the Golden Knights are right in the mix of that, but it's going to be tough. There's more depth to the division this year than in previous years, and so um, it might be one of those additional wildcard spots that we're looking at, but it's hard to say right now. We're going to be right in the thick of that middle part there, I think.
It's probably be the same as last season, kind of jumping into the division, out, in, out. Like,
I mean, last season we were hoping for better things, but yeah, I think
yeah,
that this is
yeah.
now more a reality than our.
Well, also the teams that weren't sure about, like at the beginning of the season, there's no one thought
Oh, Vancouver, yeah.
The Canucks were gonna be the top of the division and how good they were. Is gonna there could be some surprises. Who knows? I mean, even the Sharks. I mean, they're gonna be probably not a very good team again, but they've got some interesting pieces to the team now with Macklin Celebrini, Will Smith, and some of the veterans they added to Foley and I don't know. They could be an interesting team. I don't know if they're gonna, of course, not gonna do much, but they could maybe mess with some of the good teams,
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
But
I think their rebuild is now in the building stage. I think they're starting to try to add and try to. So, I mean, a couple more wins and maybe a little more, maybe not as easy a night at the office when you're playing
yeah,
them this year. But yeah, we'll see.
yeah, and the Ducks too. I mean, all these teams. It's not an easy night. There's no easy nights in the NHL. I mean, all the teams have talent. It's just a matter of where they are in their development. So.
No.
All right, let's move to our quick fire round. And these are all just quick questions, so one or two sentence answers as we go through. So, our first one, biggest storyline or a question mark that going into this season?
Um, I mean, I think the biggest storyline is that there's a whole lot of goals to make up here. I mean, March so had 42. You lost guys like Stevenson and Amadio, who had I think about 16 and 14 or something like that. So there's some. I mean, there's some significant offense that has now departed, and so I mean, I think a lot of it's going to have to be um, internal. You can't necessarily put all those goals on Olafson and Holtz
Mhm.
alone. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, so that would be pretty unfair pressure right there. So you're hoping for some development from guys like Dorofeyev. It would be great to see Ivan Barbashev, for instance, get back to the 20 goal mark. I think he ended up with 19 last year, and so to have a little bit of an uptick there. So, I mean, depth scoring is going to be a big question mark for this
Mhm.
team, and it'll be interesting. Even a guy like Brandon Brisson, see if he can take some strides in his second
Mhm.
year and hopefully become more of a established regular in the lineup. Yeah, I just think, as we mentioned, the blue line is pretty set, pretty solid, and fairly predictable at this point. But it's the offense that's going to be the big wild card.
100%. It's funny. Brendan Brisson is the only prospect they've held on to. I'd say longer than other guys, it seems.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, even just they all the moves at the trade deadline to land Hannafin and Hurdle, and that was another exodus of the
Yeah.
farm system right there.
So it's he
Our one
seems to a
hope.
guy they like. So
Yeah.
we'll see how much longer he sticks around.
Yeah.
All right. One or two breakout stars for this season.
Yeah. I made mention of Door Five. I've brought him up a couple times, and I think that he's going to be a big one. But I mean, I don't know if he counts as a breakout, but I think that you can't underestimate what a full season of Thomas Hurdle means.
Yeah.
I think that he's like, I mean, it was a hard situation to come into. He was healthy for, I think, the last five regular season games of the
Yeah.
year. So you can't expect much out of that. And sure enough, once the playoffs rolled around, he still clearly wasn't ready. I think he picked up 1 point. Well, I think he picked up 1 point in 7 games and a -6 or something like that. So um, having him get a full training camp in, having him get back to game shape, it's huge. And I don't think Golden Knights fans know yet what they have in Thomas Hurdle. I mean, sure
Mhm.
they've seen him. We've played against him enough times with the Sharks, but it's been a long time since he's been healthy and productive. And this could be another Jack Eichel situation where finally he's we've got a star caliber player who's back ready to contribute, and we saw the kind of difference that Eichel made. So hopefully we get another driving force like that.
I mean, Hurdle's he's a very talented player. He's shown that in San Jose, and now he's under that big contract, and you'd hope that he could actually live up to it and actually produce. But very good. I think he's going to end up having a breakout season too, especially if he stays healthy all season. Which what happened, well, like you said, plagued Eichel before, and now he's been healthy for a bit here. So
Yeah.
we'll hopefully that goes the same way. All right, someone that needs to bounce back from last season.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the goaltending is going to be a big area of some rebounding necessary. Where Hill was okay last year, he wasn't great, and certainly they were hoping that the Hill Thompson tandem was able to grow in a way that, quite frankly, it didn't. And so, obviously, now that Logan Thompson's gone, so Adin Hill becomes the focus of that. Another guy in a contract year, and Samsonov. I mean, it's the same thing in Toronto where he's coming off a down year, and so the idea of being able to I mean, I think that a change of scenery is probably helpful in his case,
Mhm.
and maybe a little less pressure on him than there was in Toronto last year. Uh, and I think that that sort of a shift could really help the guy, and there's optimism that he can get back to playing at a pretty solid level. The same thing goes for Victor Olofsson. I mean, we talked about
Mhm.
it earlier on, but going from 28 goals 2 years ago to an injury marred, what, 6 or 7 goals I think he had last year. So I think there are a couple of guys. It's funny,
Yeah.
go figure, for the team that won the cup and then lost in the first round. I think there's a general theme of wanting to wipe the slate clean on last year and maybe go back to the way things were a couple
Yeah.
of years.
For sure. I mean, Samsonov is one of those guys that I mean, maybe he'll be better in a lesser market.
Mhm.
Obviously he was in Washington, which isn't as big of a market either, but going to Toronto and dealing with that pressure and then now going back to a team that's not going to be as as much again. So I don't know. We'll see how he kind of
Yeah, I mean
plays
the
here.
expectations are the same, but the media market is
Yeah,
certainly
it's such different.
a little different intensity.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think any market matches Toronto in
That's true.
that. Although most Canadian teams are that way.
Yeah, there is still that.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about some X factors. This could be a player or it could be a situation. What could be an X factor this season?
Um, Interesting the situation. No, I mean the guy that I point to is Hannafin.
Mm,
I mean, I guess Hurdle falls into that same group, but just we saw in a very small sample size what Hannafin can be for the Golden Knights, and I really think that, especially with Alex Pietrangelo getting a little bit older now, I think that Hannafin could very quickly be the blue line anchor for this team
hmm
and sort of continue that, prolong that reputation of just sort of strong defense
mm,
that the Golden Knights have really put forth over the last few years. But between now being really the power play quarterback and being leaned on to play probably in the mid 20s in minutes, I mean, and quite frankly, looking at a future that may or may not include Shea Theodore, I think that
Hmm.
there's a real emphasis on him, um, yeah, becoming an anchor for that blue line, really carrying the unit, and I think he's got huge value on this team.
Yeah, and he signed that, of course, the long-term contract too. And what everyone wasn't sure he was gonna come back after it could have been a rental, who knows? But I ended up re-signing, and now, yeah, he's going to be a big part of this team. And he's not old either. I mean, he's still relatively young.
Yeah,
So yeah, he could definitely be that.
yeah.
All right, let's talk about
The
some.
last, oh, sorry.
Yeah. Oh no, go for it.
No, I was just going to say on that, like the last few years of the contract may not look great, but that's where the emphasis is on these first couple years to really make that value count and to still help with contention at this point. So yeah, I mean, this is where he's going to make that contract look good, hopefully.
For sure. And like I say, it seemed like he really fit in right away. I mean, it didn't seem like he had any growing pains to start. So I mean, I think he saw that he fits in, and we'll see how it all goes.
For
All
sure.
right. All right. There's not a lot of really spots, I guess, for these guys, but what do you see any prospects maybe surprising and making the team? Again, their prospect pool is not the strongest, but do you see anyone kind of on the radar in that case?
Well, that would be. I mean, we talked about him earlier, but Brisson is
Yeah,
basically the one and only at
the
this
only
point.
one.
I guess Keegan Colasar should set himself up as a regular NHLer at this point, but he's really going to fill some of those fourth line gaps, I would think.
Mhm.
But no, Brisson has the chance to um, really become sort of a middle six mainstay for us.
Mhm.
And um, I do think this is a big camp for him. I do think this is really time to show because you mentioned that it's like I mean Vegas is not an organization that is known for its patience with its
Yeah.
prospects. So um, this could be a situation where this is the best shot he's going to get. And I mean I don't know. I'm not saying that they're getting rid of the bum if he doesn't make the team out of trade. Uh, I I do think that there's a real opportunity here, and I think that he's definitely going to be one of the most watched guys on that team in camp.
Yeah, like I say, he seems to be the only prospect they're holding on to at this point. They traded their
Yeah.
David Edstrom like really quickly after they drafted him, not that long ago, and he's been traded again since. So it's an interesting thing.
Yep.
But yeah, I think Holtz would still be falling under the prospect umbrella, I guess, too. But he's got some NHL experience. I outside of guys that make the team, I mean, obviously the Golden Knights still have prospects. Who do you
We didn't
see?
talk about Trevor Connolly.
Yeah, yeah. That's a very good one. I mean, we'll see how long he stays in the system. But who should everyone be watching this season? I mean, Connolly's a big one, yeah, for sure.
Um, yeah, I would say. I mean, he's going to be a pretty interesting. Like, I mean, just such a divisive prospect, such a guy who, I mean, the talent is there, and there's no questioning. I mean, um, I think he probably would have been a whole lot higher up the draft board if not for some of the off-ice stuff
Mhm.
and some of the character questions about him. Now, going into the draft, he said all the right things. He um, apparently Vegas was pretty thorough about looking into some of the past issues, and they were obviously content with what they found. So, I mean, he's gonna have he's gonna have his share. Like, I mean, he just got drafted, so he's gonna have some time, but it is a good opportunity for him to show that he's matured, to show that he can come in and just focus on the on ice stuff and try
Mhm.
to remind people that, oh yeah, he's a pretty good hockey player. So he's gonna be a fun one to watch in camp as well.
He's one of those guys like he was set to be like at times there was like top 20, top 15. I mean,
Yep.
talent wise, that's probably where he would fall. But yeah, those issues off ice really uh, threw threw off some scouts, I think, and teams. So, but yeah, I mean, the Golden Knights look like they did their due diligence, and of course they did, interviewed him and all that. So yeah, well, it's going to be interesting to see his development over the next few seasons and how he kind of goes in this system. He's probably one of their top prospects for sure
I
at
mean,
this
I
point.
think he shoots right to the top. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
uh,
they have so much, don't have any others.
a great deal of competition there.
Yeah, right. All right, this could be easy, although there's a lot of candidates for this one. Who do you think will lead the team in scoring, forwards and defense?
Well, it's funny you say that. I don't know that it's going to be easy because over the last 3 years, I think the Vegas scoring leader has the Vegas. I think the top scorer has won the scoring race by 2 points or less in each of the last 3 seasons. So it is fairly balanced.
Mhm.
I mean, Eichel's obviously up there. We talked about Hurdle being in line for sort of a bounce back from injury season. So. Um, it wouldn't surprise me. I default back to Eichel just because he has sort of established himself as the number one center, franchise guy. But it's hard to see. And on the blue line, I mean, I think it's Hannafin. I think he's going to get every uh, opportunity on the top power
Mhm.
play unit. But I'm curious to see what Shea Theodore does as with his contract coming up because when he's healthy, still talented offensive player, and he's always had the luxury alongside Braden McNabb of sort of freelancing a little more and being able to have the freedom to join the offensive rush a little bit. So still think it's going to be Hannafin, but yeah, I think we are in line for some interesting scoring races here.
Yeah, I mean, Marchessault's not part of that now too, so I mean, there could be some other candidates to kind of
Yeah, the goal.
look
Yeah,
at that
like I
too,
said,
right?
someone's hopefully gonna fill the net. We'll see.
Yeah, Marchessault, what he scored 42?
42. Yeah,
42 goals. You need 42 goals from someone this
yeah.
season. We'll see who that is.
No pressure. Yeah.
All right, now to finish the show, let's talk some bold predictions. What do you got for this season?
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. We've mentioned them before, and we're just talking about the goals now. So this is going out there a little bit, but I've got Pavel Dorofeyev for. I think he's got a 30 goal season in him. I think that. I mean, he's over the last 2 seasons, he hasn't had a whole lot of NHL play, but in that time, he still managed to score, I think, in the mid-teens both
Mm.
years, um, in limited average ice time too. So I think that now that he's going to get the lion's share of opportunities here and probably be on a line where he's playing closer to, I don't know, 17, 18 minutes a night. I think there's really an opportunity here for him to take advantage of it, and I don't think 30 goals is all that out of reach for him. Like we said, the goals have to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
So
Looking at, I mean, I guess that he's going to be playing with a pretty talented either Hurdle or Eichel. Who knows? I mean, he's going to play with one of those guys. Even if he plays with Carlson, that's a pretty good center to play with
yeah,
too. So,
not bad.
yeah, and I could see that. I could see 30 goals out of him too, for sure. All right. Well, thanks, Ben, for coming on, talking Golden Knights as we preview the season coming up. It should be another good season for them. They got the core group still together, really, minus Marchessault and Stevenson. I guess those two big parts, but replacing with Hurdle, and I guess who else would replace?
Well, Hannafin,
I guess Hannafin would be your other. Yeah. And Martinez was gone too. So I mean, they did lose some guys, but I think they replaced them with some pretty good guys too. So they should be in the top half of the league again. Probably make the playoffs, although that's not always a guarantee with some of the teams. What happens though, but yeah. So
the
make
Golden
sure.
Knights track record is that health is always a big question
Yeah.
here, but yeah, you never know. They do have the talent to compete with. I mean, maybe aside from the Oilers, about anybody in that division. So.
Yeah, they definitely got the biggest things is having the center depth and the high end center depth, which you need in this conference. It seems all the teams have them. So yeah, make sure to check out everything on hockeyWriters.com for all of our coverage on the Golden Knights, whoever fills in there during the season. But yeah, make sure to check out everything, all of our preview stuff on the site and on our YouTube channel with all of the other previews we've have out already. You can check them all out. But until our next preview, we'll see you next time.